C&C Equipment has built a reputation around used heavy machinery, restoration projects, and auction finds that appear at first glance to be straightforward success stories. Through its business operations and widely viewed online content, the company presents a transparent look at buying and repairing surplus equipment. However, a closer examination reveals a consistent pattern that is easy to overlook. Behind many of these machines are costly mechanical issues, undisclosed damage, and risks that only surface after purchase. This pattern raises broader questions about how used equipment is sold, evaluated, and ultimately presented to buyers. C&C Equipment operates at the intersection of used heavy machinery sales and public documentation of that process. Through its business and online presence, the company shows how surplus and second-hand equipment is sourced, repaired, and resold. At face value, the content appears to focus on mechanical work and practical problem-solving. Machines are purchased, evaluated, and brought back into working condition, often after sitting unused for long periods of time. What becomes clear over time is that many of these purchases come with issues that were not fully visible at the point of sale. Engines show signs of internal damage, components are worn beyond expectations, and previous repairs are sometimes revealed to be incomplete or incorrect. These discoveries are not presented as rare events, but as recurring realities of buying used equipment, especially through auctions and surplus channels. This pattern highlights a fundamental aspect of the used equipment market. Even experienced buyers with technical knowledge and inspection access can miss serious problems until a machine is fully disassembled or placed back into operation. The work shown by C&C Equipment illustrates how risk is built into these transactions and how the true condition of heavy machinery often only becomes apparent after ownership has already changed hands. C&C Equipment is a used heavy equipment dealer based in Indiana that specializes in surplus and second-hand machinery, including construction equipment and former military vehicles. The company sources much of its inventory through auctions and surplus sales, where machines are often sold with limited operational guarantees. These purchases are then transported to their facility for inspection, repair, or resale, depending on condition and market demand. In parallel with its sales operation, C&C Equipment maintains a public video archive documenting this process. The videos show equipment arriving from auctions, undergoing evaluation, and being repaired or dismantled to identify faults. This content serves both as a record of their work and as a practical demonstration of the realities of used equipment ownership. Rather than presenting fully restored machines only at completion, the footage frequently captures the intermediate stages where problems are identified. This approach has positioned the company as a visible example of how surplus equipment moves from auction listings to operational assets. It also provides insight into the decision-making involved in whether a machine is worth repairing or should instead be parted out. By making these evaluations public, C&C Equipment offers a clearer picture of how resale value, repair cost, and mechanical condition intersect in the used machinery market. A recurring focus in C&C Equipment's documented work is the gap between how machines are presented at auction and their actual condition after purchase. Auction listings typically provide basic descriptions, limited photographs, and minimal operational detail. While this is standard practice in surplus and liquidation sales, it places a significant burden on the buyer to assess risk with incomplete information. Even when inspections are possible, internal components and past repair quality often remain hidden. Once equipment arrives at the shop, these unknowns become clearer. Engines may show internal wear that was not apparent during inspection. Hydraulic systems may suffer from contamination, and structural components can reveal stress or fatigue only after disassembly. In several cases, machines that appeared functional on arrival were later found to have serious internal damage that required extensive labor or replacement parts. These outcomes are not framed as exceptions, but as expected possibilities when purchasing equipment through auction channels. The work shown by C&C Equipment illustrates how quickly repair costs can exceed initial expectations and how value calculations must be revisited once a machine is fully evaluated. This process underscores a central reality of auction buying. The purchase price represents only the beginning of the investment, with the true cost often emerging later through inspection and repair. While C&C Equipment's projects are often presented as mechanical challenges, they also reflect the financial considerations that drive each decision. Every machine brought in from an auction represents a calculation involving purchase price, estimated repair cost, parts availability, and resale value. These factors determine whether equipment is repaired, sold as is, or dismantled for components. The process is methodical rather than experimental, even when outcomes are uncertain. The repairs shown are not cosmetic improvements, but functional necessities. Engines are rebuilt to address internal failures, hydraulic systems are cleaned or replaced to restore operation, and driveline components are repaired to meet working standards. In some cases, the labor required exceeds the machine's potential resale value, forcing a reassessment of the original purchase decision. These situations highlight how thin the margins can be in used equipment resale. By documenting these outcomes, C&C Equipment provides insight into how professionals manage loss as part of routine operations. Not every project results in a profitable turnaround, and some machines serve primarily as sources of parts rather than finished products. This aspect of the business is rarely visible in traditional sales listings, but is central to understanding how surplus equipment markets function. The work demonstrates that restoration is not always about recovery, but about limiting exposure when assumptions prove incorrect. As machines are taken apart and evaluated, patterns begin to emerge in the types of problems that surface most often. Many issues are not the result of catastrophic failure, but of long-term neglect, improper maintenance, or incomplete prior repairs. Internal engine components may show uneven wear, seals and gaskets are frequently degraded, and electrical systems often reflect years of temporary fixes rather than proper servicing. These conditions are difficult to detect without partial disassembly. Hydraulic systems present another common challenge. Contaminated fluid, worn pumps, and damaged lines can remain hidden until the system is placed under load. In some cases, multiple components have been replaced independently over time, masking underlying issues rather than resolving them. Structural problems, including cracks or stress fatigue, may also become visible only after cleaning or removal of surrounding parts. The material documented by C&C Equipment demonstrates that these discoveries are not anomalies, but recurring outcomes of buying used machinery with limited service history. Each machine effectively carries a record of its previous use, stored in its internal condition rather than its external appearance. This reinforces the reality that surface-level inspections provide only partial information. True assessment requires time, labor, and acceptance of uncertainty, all of which factor into the long-term cost of ownership. The visibility of these evaluations has played a significant role in shaping how C&C Equipment is perceived by its audience. Rather than presenting only completed restorations, the company consistently shows the inspection and repair process in detail. This approach allows viewers to see the consequences of purchasing decisions and the reasoning behind repair strategies. The emphasis is placed on analysis and outcomes rather than presentation. Over time, this level of documentation has contributed to steady audience growth. Viewers are exposed to the realities of surplus equipment ownership, including setbacks and financial losses that are rarely addressed in promotional material. The content does not rely on idealized results, but on transparency, which has helped establish credibility within a niche community of equipment operators, mechanics, and buyers. This model also differentiates the company from traditional equipment dealers, who typically showcase only machines ready for sale. By contrast, C&C equipment makes the process visible, including decisions to abandon repairs or part out machines when costs become prohibitive. This openness aligns the channel more closely with an educational resource than a marketing platform. It provides context for the risks involved and explains why certain machines succeed while others do not, offering viewers a clearer understanding of how outcomes are shaped long before equipment reaches the market. The patterns observed in C&C equipment's work reflect broader conditions within the used heavy equipment market. Surplus machinery often changes hands multiple times, with incomplete records and varying standards of maintenance. As a result, buyers frequently rely on limited disclosures and surface inspections when making purchasing decisions. This structure favors speed and volume over transparency, increasing the likelihood that problems remain undiscovered until after ownership transfers. Auction environments amplify these conditions. Equipment is sold under time constraints, often without comprehensive testing, and warranties are rarely offered. Pricing reflects this uncertainty, but discounts do not always account for the full cost of rehabilitation. The experiences documented by C&C equipment illustrate how quickly assumed value can shift once machines are examined beyond their exterior condition. These dynamics place experienced buyers and newcomers alike in similar positions of risk. Technical knowledge can reduce exposure, but cannot eliminate it entirely when access to full-service histories is limited. The result is a market where post-purchase evaluation becomes a critical phase of ownership rather than a formality. C&C equipment's documented outcomes demonstrate how this reality shapes purchasing strategies, repair decisions, and resale practices across the industry, reinforcing the idea that uncertainty is not an exception, but a defining feature of surplus equipment transactions. Taken together, the work documented by C&C equipment points to a consistent reality rather than an isolated phenomenon. The challenges encountered are not the result of unusual circumstances, but are representative of how surplus and used machinery is commonly traded. Machines are priced and sold based on limited information, and their true condition often remains unknown until significant time and labor are invested. This gap between appearance and reality defines much of the risk in the market. The value of this documentation lies in its clarity. By showing inspections, failures, and decision points, C&C equipment illustrates how professionals respond when expectations do not align with outcomes. Some machines justify repair despite hidden issues, while others are deemed impractical to recover. These decisions reflect cost control rather than ideal outcomes, emphasizing sustainability over perfection. In this context, the secret is not a single revelation, but an accumulation of evidence. The used equipment market operates on uncertainty, and successful participation depends on managing that uncertainty rather than eliminating it. The material presented demonstrates that careful evaluation continues well after purchase, and that risk remains an ongoing factor throughout ownership. This perspective reframes restoration not as a guaranteed process, but as a calculated response to conditions that only become clear with direct examination. C&C equipment's documented work provides a practical view into how used and surplus machinery is evaluated beyond initial purchase. The projects show that pricing and appearance rarely reflect a machine's true condition, and that inspection often reveals issues not disclosed at sale. These outcomes highlight the structural risks built into auction and surplus markets. Rather than presenting restoration as a predictable process, the material emphasizes ongoing assessment, cost control, and informed decision-making. In doing so, it offers a clearer understanding of how professionals navigate uncertainty and why successful equipment ownership depends as much on risk management as on mechanical skill.